Hi, I'm Rebecca.
And I'm Charlene. Welcome to Empowered Life Lessons of Everyday Women.
Each episode, you are going to meet an amazing woman who has had struggles both in her family life and her home life and been very successful in their careers. Today, we're going to meet Jennie. Jennie has been a educator for over 30 years, both in the public and the private sector. She has great insight on the importance of planning ahead and always being flexible. Welcome, Jennie. We're so happy to have you.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
So we're going to get right into it. What would you tell your 20-year-old self now?
There's actually quite a long list, but let's summarize it in the sense of it's okay to just be in the moment and take the moment for what it is. I've always been a planner, so when I was 20, I think I was over-focused on checklists and missed some opportunities to just be in the moment and be intentional with the people around me. Relationships and those connections are so important. So I would tell myself, slow down a smidge.
Slowing down is a good thing.
Yeah, right?
We all forget to breathe and we all forget to kind of just, like you said, just savor in that moment.
Yeah. Well, I'm a huge list maker, so I've always done the what can I get done? And sometimes I do.
Correct.
You're a teacher. What made you get into being a teacher?
There's actually a bit of a spiritual angle to this. So I grew up in a very loving Christian home and frequented church every Sunday and had some amazing Sunday school teachers. And there was a moment where in my nightly prayers, I just felt called to be a teacher. I knew I wanted to be a help. I think this is what I want to do. So I was very driven through high school and college, knowing that was my end goal, if you will. I knew that's what I wanted to do. That I loved learning, always loved learning, and just felt.
Did you know what kind of teacher you wanted to be? I know that you stayed mainly in the primary age, but did you know that right away or was?
No, I did not. So no, I didn't know about the primary thing till much later. And when I started teaching, I was actually like in 5th, 6th grade range. But the funny thing was the yearbook would come out or parents would make comments, you look just like one of the students. My younger sister will tell you, she probably saw it way before I did because she was my student for my afternoons, but she will attribute that's how she knows her math facts. So that's when I kind of bumped down to younger grades.
That's a very interesting way to kind of figure out where you're going. I also was raised by an educator and loved kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade. Those were her in wheelhouse. So I can totally relate. It's a really, really fun, beautiful age for kids.
It really is.
Which leads me to your next question. So are you married and do you have children of your own?
Yes, I have been married 32 plus years to my husband, who is now a retired firefighter. They retire earlier, and now he is a handyman. And we have 2 grown daughters that are both married. And we had our first grandchild just about 9 months ago. And we found out 2 months ago that our other daughter is now expecting. So thank you. Entering into that grandparent spot, which for me is a joy because I feel like it is a chance to take, that hindsight that's 2020. I can slow down now. I can be much more intentional with my grandchildren.
Can I step you back for a minute? So, because I think our audience really wants to know, our listeners really want to know, like they're in a place where they're trying to balance home and career.
Oh,
so you had a very unusual situation having a husband that was a firefighter, which is not a traditional, I'm going to say traditional job, 9-to-5 job. So can you just tell us a little bit how you were able to balance those two things?
Yes, I will say the first 10 years were extremely rocky. I want to be vulnerable in order to allow the listeners to know it hasn't been all rosy and that kind of thing. So, husband John has been full-time firefighter. The first 2 years of our marriage, he was what was called seasonal. So he was a wildland firefighter.
Hmm.
So that means it's not just you go to the station and then you come home after a 12-hour shift, or you do a day on, day off. At the time when he started, he was on for 4 days and then home for 3, as long as there wasn't a big fire. If there was a big fire, he could be gone weeks. Sometimes he was gone a month and a half.
In a way, you were kind of almost a single mom, even though you were a married mom.
Single mom. Yeah, I was a single mom raising the kids. The girls would even be quick to share that now. Mom was the main,
Wow.
I had to be head of household, and in a Christian household, typically the man is the spiritual leader of the home. I had to be that as well because he wasn't there as much. And I was the constant. So
Second, but it's not just that, right? Now you've not only are you a single parent, but you have the stress of
working full time.
worry because it's such a dangerous job that he had,
Correct.
keeping it all balanced.
And then kids, and then homework, and then my own job. Yeah, I will tell you, was the support of people around me.
That was going to be my next question. So who did you, like, it wasn't just Jennie by herself. Who did you reach out to? And like, again, we're looking for insight for those that may be going through this, or our listeners that are going through this at the same time, maybe even not in the same career. But how were you able to get the support you need, and what kind of insight would you give our listeners?
At the start, I'll be honest, I didn't have a whole lot of support. And being the kind of type A personality, I wanted to be able to do it all myself and do it well and I hit a moment, or I hit a period of time where there was some resentment that was turning to anger, and I needed to seek some, private counseling. And then from there, learning to lean more on my faith community, people from church, and again, being vulnerable to say, hey, I need some help. And I had a dear friend that is now, she's like my girl's second mom, that became that very, very place of, hey, I'm here for you. You can be real. You don't have to be this perfect image. So, and then from there, as the girls got older and got involved in dance or their school activities, I was able to make relationships with other parents whose kids were in similar activities and, could lean on. All that to be said, that this was all before cell phones and, all of that. I could go weeks without hearing from John, knowing, where he was and what was going on. Now I'm actually part of a online support group for women. And I know this is specific to the fire field, but I know social media can have so many anxiety producing negative things, but there's some really wonderful group settings and encouragements where there is a group of wives now, or girlfriends that, there's a spot where it's like, hey, he's been gone for a while. Any ideas on how to, handle this? And so I would say to younger people, don't be afraid to seek help, to put yourself out there, to ask someone near you, or to even look online or ask somebody in a similar situation, how they handle things.
It's really important. I know when my kids were younger and my husband left, I learned very quickly that I had to ask for things from other people. And the simplest thing that I learned was, can I have a hug? I would go up to friends, and I found that was one of the most powerful things, to get a hug and to give a hug. It released so much stuff.
I think that's important. Human connection, we're made to be in relationship and in connection. And, whether that's a dear friend or whatever it may be, it doesn't necessarily have to be a spouse or connecting, So I think, that's really important.
It's great. I think that's great because I'm a type A as well. I think as type A's, we really have a hard time letting go of control. And I think there's quite a few listeners out there can relate to this. And then asking, like you said, for help and then accepting that help. I mean, especially if you have the personality of, I'm going to call a giver.
Yes.
It's very difficult for you to not to take from anybody. It's like somehow you're failing yourself.
Right.
So I think that that lesson is really, really important, that it's okay to ask for help.
And better to learn it before being taught it. It's what I now say. So it was, I don't know if it's okay to share now or not, but I had a bout with an aggressive breast cancer. And for me, I looked at it, okay, God's showing me I don't have to be completely in control. And it's important that I learn to ask for help and lean on others. The girls were a junior high and fifth grade.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So I couldn't keep up, literally could not keep up. And I really learned through that those types of opportunities give other people a chance to be a blessing to you. Right? If we're always being the ones giving, we're taking away, in a way, opportunity for others to have their turn to give. I think it's just a balance of, you know what? It's okay to be on the receiving end.
I
Absolutely
love that. I really do. That's really profound. And I think our listeners will, the fact that you had a very serious illness and that you looked at it as an opportunity for others to help you and give their love to you and give their support. I think a lot of us, again, especially with those high-end stress work jobs and in today's workplace, we're all competing with everybody. It's really hard to kind of just put walls down.
Absolutely.
That's great.
Absolutely.
Well, and going back to work after that, I really looked at my job differently in the sense of what truly was important and what wasn't. So other fellow educators might understand. I didn't change my bulletin boards every month anymore. I did them each trimester. It just wasn't, I was picking and choosing how I was investing my time and what those important things were.
That's great.
So anyway,
So I know when we first started out, you had mentioned that, being able to plan and being flexible was huge. So it sounds like you incorporated that a lot after your illness and everything else. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Oh, sure. I would love to. The type career I was in, you have to be prepared. You have to be prepared for just about anything, even down to fire drills, the emergency pieces to that career anymore. So I probably took it too far at times, wanting to make sure I had every minute detail ready. But one of the biggest examples that I remember quickly was, we had a big earthquake up where I lived in Northern California. And when we returned to school, I had kids just extremely anxious.
Yeah.
So the spelling list, the math lesson, all of those things that I had prepared weren't important anymore. We needed to just sit in our little, what we called our community circle, and just have some time to be able to share, being aware of my students' needs along with what I was responsible to teach them, in that time frame, because we had what's called a scope and sequence. You had to accomplish things within so many weeks. It's a balance. It's a very much, having to show yourself. I had to show myself a lot of grace and be patient to not get so caught up in the checklist that I was missing the human connection of what is it that my students need for today, right? Having to turn plans in to your administrator, but then also being aware that some of that may have to change a smidge if there's some type of a situation or just, you never know what may come up, right? Or what is placed before you each and every day. We're given opportunities. we don't know until they're there in front of us. And I like to think that, those are the important interactions that are meaningful to others and to ourselves, having that unexpected conversation at the mailbox or wherever it may be.
Well, I think you were talking about, and I really love this concept too, and it's good insight, I think, again, for our listeners, but the idea of not only showing the kids grace, that's what you did, but you showed yourself grace. And, again, it's something that I think a lot of times we get so caught up, and it kind of goes back full circle to where we started this conversation, which was, slowing things down. But even showing grace is kind of like allowing yourself to kind of reflect a little bit as you get a little older and a little wiser, and it's information we can share, being able to kind of look at that differently and kind of being able to give that to somebody, that idea of, I think it's.
No, I think that's really important. In fact, to just expand on that a small bit too, I'm at a season in my life where I'm having to give myself grace again and slow down. These, I like to have a little checklist, task list for each day. And, I know.
Oh, not only do I do the checklist, but I also have the time it's supposed to take me to do each one of them.
Oh, no.
Well, is it color coded? Because
we might have to interview Rebecca down the line.
That being said, listeners, that's fun stuff and love a great planner. But all of that is set aside in seasons where we have to give ourselves grace. We may have to grieve. I'm in a season of grief. My father passed a few months back, and I have a very, very poignant person in my life, especially through my cancer journey. So, the last few days, just getting a load of laundry done has been the big task, and it's been okay. And if I sit and need some tears while I'm journaling or just whatever, it's okay, because this is a season and it's part of that journey, and it's part of being empowered to share with others and be vulnerable with others. At some point, I won't be at this quite a sensitive spot, but I'll be able to surround somebody that is, right? So it's that it takes a village kind of thought,
Yes. Right.
Right now I'm having a hard time some mornings getting up, but I get up.
Well, it is important to know that you can be vulnerable. I mean, everybody is going to be superhuman, Teflon coated, we're all human.
Correct.
So I have a couple questions.
Sure.
Kind of tailor it to a different aspect. There's a lot of things as a teacher, right? You're learning about human behavior and things like that. Are there any correlations that you might see that somebody in the business world, in corporate America, might be able to use from a classroom managing perspective to take into the business arena?
That's a really, really great question. No, my first thought is that similar thing of slowing down and listening, because my sister's in the HR world, and very, sometimes when we're talking, we try to relate, right? Of how you have to listen. You may not be agreeing with everything, but you still listen. And at the same time, you also may need boundaries, right? So in a classroom, I'm listening to my students, but there's still a boundary of, when someone else is talking, we're listening, we're not in, okay, that's a classroom type boundary. In the business world, you may need a boundary of, I don't take phone calls after 9 p.m. So if you want to email, go ahead. I will check it at this time in the morning and get back to you ASAP.
So I think that's wonderful.
We're listening, but we're also the boundaries of, okay, yeah.
And that's huge. I mean, when I worked, I had people that worked for me all over the world at the same time, right? So there were certain times that I would set up where I could talk to them, communicate with them, but I had to sleep. I had to get other things done. I couldn't be on call 24 hours a day. And
and now with Zoom and social, like all of the techie things, it's that we need an answer. Oh, hey, can you do this meeting? Oh, hey, can we travel and arrange this? And you want to know right now, Well, I'm in the middle of a meeting right now. I will get back to you as soon as I can to let you know.
It's
So
interesting.
it's
I was going to just say when I was working, because I used to have my own business. And so I would work from my home and my kids would come home at 6 o'clock. But at 5 o'clock every day, I would put on my answering machine. Okay, that's going to tell you a little bit how old I am. But I'd put on my answering machine and I would work out with like a videotape. And
yeah,
I would have the answer machine on and I would listen to it. So it was really important. I would answer the phone and I was panting because I was
yeah,
working out. But typically I would just say, this is my time and I need this so that I can be a better, more productive person to
yes,
everybody else. And so at 6 o'clock, when I was finished with my workout, then I could go over to the answering machine if I wanted to, or wait till the next
right,
morning. So I
right.
did set up those boundaries even as a single business owner.
Yeah.
No, I think that's really important. I
It is.
feel like it was during COVID teaching where I really, really dialed that in, and was able to share with my parents' families. Anyway, plus you get the night owl and the early bird, right?
Yeah.
So
Right.
I'm
Right.
better earlier in the morning, and many of my parents it was late at night, so we got in a rhythm where it was okay. You're gonna want to send your email later. I get that, but I can't respond until 3 in the morning when I'm up or whatever. So
Exactly.
it's I think just again there's that vulnerability and sharing with others. This is how I operate best, and I'm respecting how you operate, and we're gonna make it you know
Sounds good.
partner. Yeah,
So,
yeah.
what is your biggest life lesson?
Oh goodness. I think it does. It just kind of comes back to that slowing down a bit
Okay.
and being intentional with people, that we can be driven with our goals and driven what we want to achieve, or who where we want to get within the corporate ladder or whatever it may be. But those moments with people really are an investment that is worth.
I like
You know what I mean? Because
absolutely. You're investing in the relationship, you're investing in
yeah,
getting to know them and listening to them. I think
yeah.
that's huge.
A little side note of that is if you're trying to invest in a relationship and it's feeling like it's more work, then to me, I would be praying about, is this really a relationship I should be investing in? I mean, I think that intentionality also comes with don't have to engage with every single person, but being kind, of course, but I'm not having dinner with every single person in my community. Anyway.
You're choosing who you want to spend your time.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's good. I
Hey,
think that's good.
Jenny, thank you so much for joining us today. We loved your insight. There's quite a few nuggets in here that we're going to end up sharing. And I think that it's helpful to both people in business and also people that are educators. So
Yeah.
we really appreciate that. And to our listeners, if you found this helpful or have questions you would like to ask us, please let us know. You can send us an email at empoweredlifelessons@gmail.com, or you can visit our webpage at www.empoweredlifelessons.com, or you can find us on Facebook and other social media. And if you wish to share your everyday life lesson with us, please contact us at our email, empoweredlifelessons@gmail, and we will put you up for consideration because we're always looking for great insight, and we really appreciate hearing from our audience as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Together we're better.
On episode 3, meet Janet L. Janet has a PhD in communications. Listen to what Janet has to say about being empowered.